Everything in your life begins with a voice, not the voices around you, the one inside you. The way you speak to yourself shapes how you see the world, how you react to pain, how you rise after failure, and how reality responds to you. Most people talk to themselves without awareness, and then wonder why life feels heavy, confusing, or out of control. This book will change that. You will learn how correct inner speech rewires your emotions, reshapes your decisions, and quietly rebuilds your reality from the inside out. Stay with this journey and subscribe, because once you speak to yourself correctly, then life can no longer stay the same. Chapter 1. The voice that builds or destroys you. There is a voice that follows you everywhere. It wakes up with you. It walks with you through every moment. It speaks when no one else is around. That voice is not random. It is not harmless. It is shaping your entire life. Long before reality responds to you, this voice speaks first. Most people think life happens to them. In truth, life responds from them, and it responds to the tone, direction, and meaning of the words they repeat inside. Your inner voice is the architect of your reality. Every success begins as an internal permission. Every failure begins as an internal sentence. Every fear is first spoken inside the mind. Every confidence is rehearsed silently before it shows itself in the world. You do not become what you want. You become what you repeatedly tell yourself. That voice inside you can be a builder, or it can be a destroyer. It can strengthen you quietly, or it can weaken you daily. And the most dangerous part is this. Most people don't even realize what they are saying to themselves. They speak to themselves automatically, carelessly, harshly, without awareness. They would never talk to another human the way they talk to themselves. They criticize their mistakes. They replay their failures. They insult their own abilities. They predict their own downfall. Then they wonder why confidence feels heavy, why motivation disappears, why reality feels resistant. The inner voice does not argue. It obeys repetition. Whatever you repeat becomes instruction. Your mind is not judging your words. It is recording them. Every sentence you say to yourself becomes a command. Every label becomes an identity. Every assumption becomes a direction. When you say, "I always mess things up," your nervous system prepares for failure. When you say, "I'm not good enough," your posture collapses slightly. When you say, "This never works for me," your brain stops looking for solutions. The voice builds habits silently. It trains how you react to stress, how you respond to challenges, how you interpret setbacks. Two people can experience the same event. One grows stronger, the other grows bitter. The difference is not intelligence. It is inner language. One speaks to themselves with guidance. The other speaks to themselves with punishment. The inner voice becomes your emotional environment, and no one escapes their environment. If the environment inside you is hostile, your energy becomes defensive. If the environment inside you is supportive, your energy becomes resilient. You may not control every situation, but you always control the voice that interprets it. That interpretation decides how reality feels. The inner voice is powerful because it speaks in private. No one corrects it. No one challenges it. It becomes the most trusted narrator of your life. If that narrator is cruel, your life feels heavy. If that narrator is disciplined and supportive, your life feels manageable. This voice is not truth. It is conditioning. Most of what you say to yourself was learned unconsciously, from childhood, from criticism, from comparison, from failure, from fear. You inherited voices that were never yours: parents, teachers, society, past experiences. They became internalized. They became familiar. They became normal. But familiar does not mean correct. A voice that constantly tears you down is not realism. It is sabotage. A voice that constantly doubts you is not caution. It is limitation. The builder voice is different. It does not lie. It does not flatter. It does not deny reality. It guides. It corrects without humiliating. It pushes without breaking. It reminds without shaming. When you fail, The builder voice says, learn from this. When you feel weak, it says, slow down but don't quit. When you are afraid, it says, this fear is information, not a verdict. The destroyer voice speaks in absolutes. Always, never, everyone else. Nothing works. The builder voice speaks in direction. Next step. Adjust. Improve. Continue. The destroyer voice keeps you stuck in identity. I am this. The builder voice keeps you focused on behavior. I did this, and I can change it. This difference changes everything. Identity statements freeze you. Behavior statements free you. Your reality follows whichever voice is dominant. If the destroyer voice dominates, you hesitate more. You doubt more. You self-sabotage quietly. You lower your standards without noticing. You avoid opportunities without admitting it. Not because you lack ability, but because your inner voice trained you to expect loss. The builder voice does the opposite. It trains endurance. It trains emotional balance. It trains courage through repetition. Confidence is not loud thinking. It is consistent, inner alignment. When your inner voice becomes steady, your external behavior stabilizes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You recover faster. The world responds differently to you, because you are responding differently to yourself. This is why reality feels personal, because it is filtered through your inner dialogue. Your inner voice decides what you notice, what you ignore, what you pursue, what you avoid. It decides what feels possible. Once you understand this, you stop blaming life. You stop asking why things feel heavy. You start listening inward, because the voice that builds or destroys you is not fate. It is trained, and anything trained can be retrained. This chapter is not about positive thinking. It is about correct thinking, not optimism, accuracy. You will not lie to yourself. You will not hype yourself. You will speak to yourself the way a disciplined leader speaks to someone they want to win. Firm, clear, respectful, because the way you speak inwardly is the blueprint your reality follows outwardly, and until that voice changes, nothing truly changes. This is where your transformation begins, not outside, inside, with the voice you use when no one else is listening. Chapter 2. How inner speech rewrites emotion. Emotion does not appear from nowhere. It is triggered, activated, directed, and the trigger is almost always a sentence. Before you feel anxious, you tell yourself something. Before you feel confident, you say something inside. Before anger rises, before sadness settles, before motivation fades, a quiet phrase passes through your mind. That phrase rewrites how your nervous system responds. Emotion is not random. It is interpreted experience. The same situation can create peace in one person and panic in another. The difference is not the situation. It is the internal narration. Your inner speech acts like a translator between reality and emotion. Reality arrives neutral. Your inner voice assigns meaning. That meaning becomes emotion. When your inner speech says, "This is dangerous," your body produces fear. When it says, "This is embarrassing," your body produces shame. When it says, "This is unfair," your body produces anger. When it says, "This is temporary," your body relaxes. Emotion follows interpretation, not facts. Most people believe their emotions control their thoughts. In truth, thoughts control emotions. Specifically, the language used inside the mind. Your brain listens to words the same way. It listens to external commands. It does not ask if the words are helpful. It only responds. Inner speech activates chemistry. A harsh sentence increases cortisol. A calm sentence stabilizes the nervous system. A hopeless sentence drains energy. A guiding sentence restores balance. You are chemically affected by how you talk to yourself. This is why emotional regulation does not begin with breathing or distraction. It begins with correcting the sentence that triggered the emotion. Most emotional pain is not caused by events. It is caused by the commentary you attach to them. A mistake happens. The destroyer voice says, "You ruined everything." The emotion becomes shame. The builder voice says, "This can be fixed." The emotion becomes focus. Same event, different sentence, different emotion. Inner speech rewires emotion. By changing interpretation speed, fast negative interpretation creates intense emotion. Slower, grounded interpretation softens it. Social anxiety is not fear of people. It is fear generated by inner commentary. What if they judge me? What if I sound stupid? I don't belong here. These sentences produce fear before anyone reacts. The emotion feels real because the body responds instantly. But the source is internal. When inner speech changes, emotional patterns change. Confidence is not lack of fear. It is a different internal narration. Instead of "this is scary," the confident inner voice says, "I can handle discomfort." Fear reduces. Presence increases. Sadness often comes from final language. It's over. It will never change. This is who I am now. Final language freezes emotion. Correct inner speech reopens movement. This is hard, not permanent. I don't see the solution yet. This moment doesn't define me. Emotion loosens. The body responds with relief. This is not imagination. It is neurological. Your emotional brain reacts to certainty. Final sentences create emotional shutdown. Open-ended sentences create resilience. This is why the words you use matter more than the thoughts you have. Thoughts appear automatically. Speech is chosen. You may not control every thought, but you can control the sentence you repeat. And repetition is what rewires emotion. The inner voice that rewrites emotion does not argue with feelings. It guides them. When anxiety rises, it does not say, "Stop feeling this." It says, "This feeling will pass if I stay steady." The nervous system listens. When anger rises, it does not say, "They deserve this rage." It says, "Pause, reacting will cost more." The body slows. When sadness rises, it does not say, "I am broken." It says, "I am processing something heavy." Emotion becomes movement instead of stagnation. This is emotional leadership. You are not suppressing feelings. You are giving them direction. Incorrect inner speech dramatizes emotion. This is unbearable. I can't take this. I always suffer. These sentences amplify emotion until it feels overwhelming. Correct inner speech contains emotion. This hurts, but I'm still standing. I can sit with this. This feeling does not control me. Containment creates stability. Your emotions are not enemies. They are signals. Inner speech decides whether you treat signals as threats or information. Fear is information. Anger is information. Sadness is information. The destroyer voice panics. The builder voice listens. When your inner speech shifts from reaction to instruction, emotion becomes manageable. This is why people with emotional balance are not emotionless. They are linguistically disciplined. They do not let emotional sentences spiral. They interrupt harmful narratives early. They catch phrases like, "I always fail." "This never works." "No one understands me." And they replace them with accurate language. Not positive lies, accurate truth. "This didn't work. I'm still learning." "Some people won't understand me." Accuracy calms emotion. Exaggeration inflames it. Your inner voice must be trained to speak with precision. Precision is emotional safety. When you exaggerate pain, emotion grows uncontrollable. When you describe pain accurately, emotion becomes tolerable. This is how inner speech rewires trauma response. Trauma is stored language. I am unsafe. I have no control. I will be hurt again. These sentences replay automatically. Healing begins when those sentences are gently rewritten. I am safe right now. I have options. This moment is not the past. The body listens. The nervous system recalibrates. Emotion begins to change, not because reality changed, but because interpretation did. This chapter is not about silencing emotion. It is about becoming its translator. You sit between reality and feeling. Your words decide what emotion becomes. Most people live emotionally reactive lives because their inner speech is uncontrolled. Once you correct the language, emotion follows structure. You stop being hijacked. You stop being overwhelmed. You stop being ruled by momentary feelings. You become steady, not because life is easy, but because your internal leadership is strong. Every emotion is shaped by how you speak inwardly. If you want emotional balance, you must master inner speech. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, because every moment you delay, your old language keeps writing your emotional future. And once you change the words, you change the feeling. Once you change the feeling, your behavior shifts. Once behavior shifts, reality responds differently. This is how inner speech rewrites emotion. And this is how your inner world begins to change your outer life. Chapter 3. Correct self-talk versus emotional self-abuse. Most people believe they are being honest with themselves. In reality, they are being cruel. They confuse honesty with punishment. They confuse discipline with humiliation. They confuse self-awareness with self-attack. And slowly, without noticing, they turn their inner voice into an enemy. Correct self-talk builds you. Emotional self-abuse breaks you quietly. The difference is not volume, it is intention. Emotional self-abuse sounds normal because it has been practiced for years. You should have known better. You always mess this up. What's wrong with you? You're weak. These sentences do not guide behavior. They attack identity. Identity attacks leave scars. Correct self-talk never attacks identity. It corrects behavior. It says, "This choice didn't help. Next time, do it differently." You're learning. One creates progress. The other creates paralysis. Emotional self-abuse feels like motivation at first. It feels sharp, urgent, intense. But intensity is not growth. It is pressure. Pressure without direction collapses the system. People who abuse themselves emotionally believe harshness will make them strong. It doesn't. It makes them fearful. Fearful people don't grow. They freeze. They avoid. They hesitate. Emotional self-abuse trains the nervous system to associate effort with pain. So eventually, the mind avoids effort entirely. This is why people procrastinate. Not because they are lazy, but because their inner voice punishes effort. Correct self-talk trains the nervous system to associate effort with guidance. Guidance creates safety. Safety creates momentum. There is a crucial distinction between responsibility and blame. Correct self-talk takes responsibility. Emotional self-abuse assigns blame. Responsibility says, "I played a role in this." Blame says, "I am the problem." One empowers change. The other kills self-trust. When you tell yourself, "I am the problem," you remove your ability to fix anything, because problems cannot solve themselves. Correct self-talk says, "I made a mistake." Mistakes can be corrected. Identity labels trap you. Behavior labels free you. Emotional self-abuse speaks in final language. "You're always like this. You'll never change. This is who you are." Final language shuts the door. Correct self-talk speaks in process language. "You're improving. This is part of learning. Stay with it." Process language keeps the door open. Many people believe they need to be hard on themselves because life is hard. But life already applies pressure. Your inner voice should apply structure, not more pain. The world will challenge you enough. You don't need to become your own enemy. Emotional self-abuse drains emotional energy. Every insult you repeat internally costs focus, costs clarity, costs motivation. By the time opportunity arrives, you are already exhausted. Correct self-talk conserves energy. It channels effort instead of burning it. This is why emotionally disciplined people seem calm even under pressure. They are not fighting themselves while handling the situation. Emotional self-abuse creates internal conflict. One part of you wants to improve. Another part of you feels attacked. So progress becomes a battlefield. Correct self-talk creates internal alignment. One voice, one direction, one goal. Alignment accelerates growth. There is also a difference in how each voice treats failure. Emotional self-abuse uses failure as proof. See, you can't do it. Correct self-talk uses failure as data. Here's what didn't work. Proof attacks worth. Data improves strategy. Emotionally abusive self-talk keeps score of everything you've done wrong. Correct self-talk tracks lessons learned. One keeps you stuck in the past. The other moves you forward. Shame is the primary weapon of emotional self-abuse. Shame says, you are flawed. Growth does not occur under shame. It occurs under clarity. Correct self-talk removes shame without removing responsibility. It says, this behavior doesn't serve you, not you are broken. This distinction protects dignity. Dignity is essential for progress. People cannot grow when they feel worthless. They can only hide, perform, or collapse. Emotional self-abuse also distorts reality. It exaggerates mistakes. It minimizes effort. It ignores progress. Your mind becomes an unfair judge instead of a wise guide. Correct self-talk is balanced. It acknowledges mistake and effort equally. Balance creates trust. When you trust your inner voice, you listen to it. When you fear your inner voice, you avoid self-reflection altogether. This is why some people avoid silence. Silence exposes the abuse. Correct self-talk makes silence safe. You can sit with yourself without tension. You can think clearly without anxiety. Emotional self-abuse also affects how you treat others. People who punish themselves often judge others harshly. People who guide themselves extend understanding outward. Your inner relationship becomes your external behavior. This is why healing self-talk changes social reality too. Correct self-talk does not mean softness. It means firmness without cruelty. A disciplined coach does not insult the athlete. They correct form. Your inner voice must become a coach, not a bully. Bullying creates fear-based compliance. Coaching creates mastery. Emotional self-abuse is loud in private, but weak in action. Correct self-talk is quiet, but powerful in results. When you correct yourself without attacking, you recover faster. You don't spiral. You don't shut down. You adjust and continue. This is emotional resilience. The goal is not to feel good all the time. The goal is to remain functional under pressure. Correct self-talk preserves function. Emotional self-abuse destroys it. You must learn to recognize when your inner voice crosses the line. The moment guidance turns into insult, correction becomes abuse, and abuse never produces excellence. This chapter is a mirror. If you feel resistance while reading, it means something is being exposed, not guilt. Awareness. Awareness is the first interruption of emotional self-abuse. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you stop abusing yourself emotionally, your energy returns. Your clarity sharpens. Your reality begins to respond differently. Because when you stop tearing yourself down, you finally give yourself a chance to rise. Chapter 4. Reprogramming the inner voice through awareness. You cannot change a voice you do not notice. Most people try to fix their thinking without ever listening to it. They want confidence, but never observe the sentences that kill it. They want peace, but never catch the words that disturb it. Awareness is where reprogramming begins, not motivation, not discipline. Awareness. Your inner voice runs on autopilot because no one is watching it. The moment you begin to observe it, it starts to lose unconscious power. Awareness turns noise into information. The inner voice speaks constantly, but most people only hear the emotion and not the sentence that created it. They feel anxious, but don't hear, I'm not ready. They feel discouraged, but don't hear, this will never change. They feel angry, but don't hear, I'm being disrespected. Emotion is loud, language is quiet. Awareness shifts your attention from the emotion to the sentence underneath it. That sentence is the real source. Reprogramming does not start by replacing sentences. It starts by catching them. If you try to change what you haven't seen, you are guessing. Awareness removes guessing. The first stage of awareness is neutral observation. You do not argue with the voice. You do not judge it. You do not correct it yet. You simply notice. This is how I talk to myself. This alone begins the shift. Why? Because unconscious patterns survive on invisibility. Once visible, they weaken. The inner voice often sounds like truth because it has never been questioned. Awareness introduces distance. You begin to hear the voice instead of being the voice. That separation is power. When you hear a sentence like, "I always fail," awareness steps in and says, "This is a sentence, not a fact." That single realization interrupts the emotional chain. You don't need to fight the sentence. You just need to see it clearly. Awareness slows the reaction. Instead of instantly believing the voice, you pause. That pause creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates change. Reprogramming through awareness is not aggressive. It is patient. You allow the old voice to reveal itself fully. Patterns emerge. You notice repetition. Same words, same tone, same themes. Self-doubt, urgency, comparison, catastrophe. Awareness exposes how limited your inner vocabulary has become. Limited language creates limited emotion. When awareness expands, language becomes flexible. You start recognizing exaggeration. This is unbearable. This ruins everything. I can't handle this. Awareness quietly labels them exaggeration, not judgment. Clarity. Clarity weakens emotional intensity. The nervous system responds when it senses accuracy. Awareness also reveals origin. Some sentences are not yours. They sound like a parent, a teacher, a past failure, a moment of shame. When you notice origin, you stop personalizing the voice. This was learned. That realization creates relief. You are not broken. You were trained, and anything trained can be retrained. Awareness also teaches timing. You start noticing when the inner voice becomes destructive, during fatigue, after rejection, under pressure. In comparison, patterns become predictable. Predictability gives control. You are no longer surprised by emotional spirals. You see them forming, and when you see them forming, you can intervene early. Early intervention requires less effort. Most people try to fix emotions after they explode. Awareness fixes them before they form. Reprogramming does not mean silencing the voice. Silence is not strength. Direction is. The inner voice is meant to guide, not disappear. Awareness teaches you which voice is guiding and which is attacking. Once you can tell the difference, change becomes natural. You stop identifying with harmful sentences. You stop defending them. You stop saying, "That's just how I am." Awareness removes identification, and what you don't identify with cannot control you. Another layer of awareness is emotional consequence. You begin noticing how each sentence makes you feel after, not immediately. After, some sentences feel sharp, but leave you drained. Some feel calm and leave you steady. Awareness connects language to outcome. You start choosing sentences based on effect, not habit. This is maturity. You no longer ask, "Is this true?" You ask, "Is this useful?" Utility rewires behavior faster than belief. Awareness also builds compassion, not softness. Understanding. You see how often the inner voice tries to protect you by attacking you. It thinks fear will keep you safe. It thinks shame will keep you small. Awareness sees the intention without accepting the method. I see why this voice exists, but it is outdated. This is how you retire old patterns without internal war. Reprogramming through awareness feels lighter than force. Force creates resistance. Awareness creates cooperation. Your mind stops fighting itself. It begins listening. As awareness deepens, the inner voice naturally slows down. It loses urgency. Urgency comes from unconscious fear. Awareness dissolves fear by bringing light to it. You don't rush to change anymore. You respond intelligently. This is why awareness is permanent. Motivation fades. Discipline tires. Awareness stays. Once you see clearly, you cannot return to blindness. Your inner world becomes transparent, and transparency is control. This chapter marks a turning point. From here on, you are no longer a victim of your inner language. You are an observer, a listener, a guide, and slowly, without violence, the voice that once ran your life begins to take instruction from you. That is reprogramming, not by force, by awareness. Chapter 5. Replacing automatic negative language with precision. Your mind speaks fast, faster than awareness, faster than logic. That speed is why negative language becomes automatic. The sentence appears before you even realize you agreed to it. Automatic language feels true because it arrives without resistance. But speed is not accuracy. Most negative self-talk survives not because it is correct, but because it is quick. Precision slows the mind, and when the mind slows, clarity replaces chaos. Automatic negative language is vague by nature. I'm bad at this. This is a disaster. I can't do anything right. Vagueness overwhelms the nervous system. When everything feels wrong, nothing feels fixable. Precision does the opposite. It narrows the focus. It isolates the issue. It removes drama. Instead of, I'm bad at this, precision says, I need to improve this specific part. The emotional difference is immediate. One sentence collapses motivation. The other creates direction. Automatic language attacks the whole self. Precision speaks only to behavior. This distinction changes your emotional posture. You stop feeling attacked. You start feeling guided. Most people live under internal exaggeration. Their mind uses extreme words. Always. Never. Everything. Nothing. Extreme language produces extreme emotion. Precision removes extremes. This didn't work. Nothing ever works. I struggled today. I'm a failure. Accuracy calms the nervous system. The body trusts precise language because it feels grounded. Automatic negative language feels emotional. Precision feels intelligent. When intelligence enters the inner dialogue, emotion stabilizes. Precision is not positive thinking. It does not deny pain. It defines it. Defined pain is manageable. Undefined pain feels endless. This is why people feel stuck. Their language is too large, too dramatic, too absolute. Precision shrinks the problem to its real size. And real-sized problems can be handled. Replacing automatic language does not require force. It requires interruption. You catch the sentence and refine it. Not silence it, refine it. I'm overwhelmed becomes I'm handling too many things at once. That refinement creates options. Options restore control. Automatic negative language removes options. Precision creates them. Your inner voice must become descriptive, not judgmental. Judgment shuts learning down. Description opens it up. This presentation was bad, creates shame. This presentation lacked clarity in the middle, creates improvement. One punishes, the other teaches. Your mind learns faster when it feels respected. Precision is respect. You respect yourself enough to tell the truth clearly, without insult. Automatic language is lazy. It takes shortcuts. Precision takes effort, but effort builds mastery. This is why disciplined people sound calmer inside. Their language is refined. They don't insult themselves to create movement. They instruct themselves. Instruction builds trust. When you trust your inner voice, you follow it. When you fear it, you resist yourself. Automatic, negative language creates internal resistance. Precision creates internal alignment. With alignment makes action easier. This is why productivity increases when inner speech improves. You are no longer dragging yourself forward while being attacked internally. You move smoothly. Precision also reduces emotional fatigue. Drama drains energy. Every exaggerated sentence costs mental resources. Precision conserves energy. You stop wasting strength on unnecessary emotional reactions. You save energy for action. This is why calm people often achieve more. They are not stronger. They are more precise. Replacing automatic negative language requires patience. The old patterns will return, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. Familiarity is powerful, but awareness weakens familiarity over time. Each time you refine a sentence, you train the mind to slow down. Slowness creates choice. Choice creates change. Precision also removes internal bullying. You stop speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to others. This restores dignity. Dignity is necessary for growth. People grow when they feel respected, even by themselves. Your inner voice becomes a leader, not a critic. Leaders give clear direction. Critics only complain. Complaints don't build reality. Direction does. As your language sharpens, your emotional balance improves. Anxiety reduces because ambiguity reduces. Confidence rises because clarity increases. You stop fighting imaginary threats created by exaggerated language. You deal only with what is real. Reality becomes manageable. This chapter marks the shift, marks the from unconscious reaction to conscious instruction. Your inner world becomes structured, and structure creates stability. When you speak to yourself precisely, you stop feeding chaos. You feed clarity, and clarity quietly reshapes how you feel, how you act, and how reality responds to you. This is not self-help. This is self-leadership, and leadership always begins with language. Chapter 6. Building emotional stability through daily inner dialogue. Emotional stability is not a personality trait. It is a daily practice. People often believe some are born calm, and others are born reactive. But stability is not inherited. It is rehearsed. Every day, through the way you speak to yourself, your emotions do not swing wildly because life is unstable. They swing because your inner dialogue is inconsistent. One moment you guide yourself, the next moment you attack yourself. Then you panic, then you suppress. This inconsistency creates emotional imbalance. Stability begins when your inner voice becomes predictable, not boring. Predictable. Predictability creates safety. Safety creates calm. Your nervous system relaxes when it knows what kind of voice will speak after a mistake, after stress, after disappointment. If the voice is harsh, the body stays tense. If the voice is steady, the body stabilizes. Daily inner dialogue trains emotional response. The same way repetition trains muscle memory. What you repeat becomes automatic. If you repeat panic, panic becomes default. If you repeat grounding language, grounding becomes default. Emotional stability is not achieved by controlling situations. It is achieved by controlling interpretation. And interpretation is built from words. Most emotional chaos comes from sudden internal shifts. You wake up hopeful. One thought appears. Your mood collapses. That collapse is not random. It is linguistic. A sentence entered unchecked. Daily inner dialogue is the filter that stops emotional contamination before it spreads. When your inner voice is trained, it intercepts destabilizing language early. This is hard. Instead of, this is unbearable, I'm uncomfortable. Instead of, I'm falling apart. These small adjustments prevent emotional escalation. Stability does not come from removing emotion. It comes from regulating intensity. Daily inner dialogue sets emotional limits. It tells the mind how far to go and where to stop. Without limits, emotion runs unchecked. With limits, emotion becomes manageable. The stable inner voice does not suppress feeling. It contains it. Containment is strength. It says, I can feel this without becoming it. This sentence alone creates emotional distance. Distance restores clarity. Clarity restores choice. Choice restores stability. Daily dialogue must be consistent. You cannot guide yourself kindly one day and abuse yourself the next and expect stability. The nervous system learns patterns, not intentions. It responds to what happens most often. If most days your inner voice is harsh, your body prepares for threat. If most days your inner voice is calm and precise, your body prepares for resilience. Emotional stability is the result of cumulative internal moments, not one big breakthrough, small daily corrections. Every morning, your inner voice sets the emotional tone. How you greet yourself matters. If the first sentence is pressure, your day feels heavy. If the first sentence is guidance, your day feels structured. Structure reduces anxiety. Anxiety thrives in ambiguity. Daily inner dialogue removes ambiguity by offering direction. What matters today? What can wait? What deserves energy? These internal statements organize emotion. Disorganized emotion feels overwhelming. Organized emotion feels manageable. Stability also depends on how you speak to yourself under stress. Stress does not create instability. It reveals it. Under stress, the default inner voice emerges. If that voice is panicked, you feel overwhelmed. If that voice is instructive, you feel challenged but capable. Daily dialogue trains your stress response. You rehearse stability before pressure arrives. This is why emotionally stable people do not suddenly become calm in crisis. They have practiced calm internally for years. Their inner voice already knows what to say. This is intense, but I've handled intensity before. The body listens. Emotional stability also requires self-trust. And self-trust is built through consistent inner behavior. If your inner voice betrays you by attacking you during weakness, trust collapses. You stop relying on yourself. Daily supportive dialogue rebuilds trust slowly. You begin to believe that no matter what happens, your inner voice will not abandon you. This belief is powerful. It creates emotional security. Security allows exploration. Exploration builds growth. Instability creates avoidance. Avoidance shrinks life. Daily inner dialogue also determines how long emotions last. Unstable dialogue extends emotion. Replaying, ruminating, blaming. Stable dialogue shortens emotional duration. You've felt this before. This will pass. Stay steady. These sentences prevent emotional looping. Looping exhausts the mind. Stability conserves energy. Energy conservation is emotional health. Another aspect of daily dialogue is emotional permission. Many people destabilize themselves by denying emotion. You shouldn't feel this. This is weak. Denial increases tension. Stability allows feeling without judgment. This is uncomfortable. I can sit with it. Allowance prevents explosion. Daily dialogue must normalize emotions, without dramatizing it. Normalization calms. Dramatization inflames. Stable inner voices normalize human experience. They do not make emotions special or catastrophic. This is part of being human. That sentence alone grounds emotion. Daily dialogue also corrects comparison. Comparison destabilizes emotions faster than failure. The inner voice must intervene quickly. You don't know their story. Stay in your lane. Precision language prevents emotional theft. You stop borrowing insecurity from imagined standards. Stability requires staying present in your own experience. Daily inner dialogue keeps you there. It gently pulls attention back when the mind wanders into fear or fantasy. Right now, I'm here. Presence stabilizes emotion. Future-focused language creates anxiety. Past-focused language creates regret. Present-focused language creates calm. Daily dialogue must anchor you in what is real, not what is imagined. Emotional stability also depends on how you end the day. The final inner conversation determines emotional recovery. If you end the day with criticism, tension carries into sleep. If you end the day with reflection, the nervous system resets. What did I learn? What can improve? These sentences close emotional loops. Closure restores balance. Stability is cumulative. Each day you guide yourself calmly, you strengthen the habit. Each day you allow chaos, you reinforce it. This is not perfection. You will fail sometimes. Stability is not never falling. It is recovering quickly. Daily inner dialogue determines recovery speed. Harsh voices slow recovery. Guiding voices accelerate it. As your dialogue stabilizes, your emotional reactions soften. You stop swinging between extremes. You respond instead of react. People around you notice. Your presence becomes calmer. Your decisions become clearer. Your energy becomes steadier. Not because life got easier, but because your inner leadership strengthened. This chapter is about building an emotional home inside yourself, a place where you can return no matter what happens outside. Daily inner dialogue is how that home is built, brick by brick, sentence by sentence. Once stability becomes internal, external chaos loses power. You are no longer thrown around by every emotional wave. You ride them. This is emotional maturity, and it begins with what you say to yourself every single day. Chapter 7. Speaking to yourself during failure and pressure. Failure changes everything, not because of what happens outside, but because of what starts speaking inside. Pressure reveals the true voice you live with. When things go wrong, the inner dialogue becomes louder, faster, sharper. That is the moment where most people lose control, not of the situation, but of themselves. Failure is not dangerous by itself. The language that follows it is under pressure. Under pressure, the mind wants certainty, and when it cannot find solutions, it creates conclusions. I'm not built for this. I can't handle pressure. This proves I'm not good enough. These sentences do not describe reality. They decide it. Pressure compresses time. It makes everything feel urgent. The inner voice mirrors that urgency. If the voice panics, the body panics. If the voice steadies, the body stabilizes. This is why emotional leaders are not those who avoid failure, but those who know what to say when failure arrives. During pressure, your inner voice must shift roles. It must stop evaluating and start directing. Evaluation creates judgment. Direction creates movement. Judgment under pressure freezes action. Direction under pressure restores control. Most people evaluate themselves at the worst possible moment. They ask internally, what does this say about me? That question creates shame. Shame narrows thinking. Narrow thinking reduces options. Pressure needs options. Correct self-talk under pressure removes identity from the equation. It does not ask, who am I? Who am I? It asks, what's the next step? Next steps restore momentum. Momentum reduces fear. Fear thrives in stillness. Speaking correctly during failure means refusing to turn moments into labels. A failed attempt is not a failed person. A mistake is not a verdict. Pressure tries to convince you that the moment is permanent. Correct inner speech breaks that illusion. This moment is temporary. That sentence alone reduces emotional weight. Under pressure, the inner voice must slow time. Rushed language creates rushed emotion. Calm language creates time expansion. I don't need to solve everything now. That sentence stabilizes breathing. Breathing stabilizes thought. Thought restores choice. Pressure also magnifies fear of consequences. What if this ruins everything? What if I disappoint everyone? These imagined futures create more pain than the actual problem. Correct inner speech anchors you to what is real. Right now, this is the situation. Reality feels smaller than imagination. Pressure feeds on imagination. Grounded language starves it. Failure also activates comparison. You imagine others succeeding. You imagine yourself falling behind. The inner voice turns against you. Correct self-talk interrupts comparison immediately. Stay in your lane. That sentence preserves focus. Focus is power under pressure. Another danger during failure is emotional accumulation. The mind piles past mistakes onto the present moment. Here we go again. This always happens. Accumulation creates despair. Correct self-talk isolates events. This is one situation. Isolation prevents emotional overload. You deal with one thing at a time. Pressure becomes manageable when it is not multiplied. Speaking to yourself correctly also means allowing discomfort without dramatizing it. Pressure hurts. Failure stings. Denying that increases tension. Correct inner speech allows pain without surrendering to it. This is uncomfortable, and I can handle discomfort. That sentence builds resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is tolerance. Tolerance keeps you functional. Failure also triggers self-doubt. The voice whispers, maybe you're not capable. Correct self-talk does not argue emotionally. It responds with evidence-based calm. You've handled hard things before. Memory grounds confidence. Pressure often erases memory. The inner voice must restore it. Failure also tempts self-abuse. You should have known better. You ruined it. These sentences punish after the damage is done. Punishment does not repair mistakes. Correct self-talk focuses on recovery. What can I salvage? Salvage thinking keeps you active. Activity reduces helplessness. Helplessness is the real enemy under pressure. As long as you feel capable of action, pressure remains tolerable. Speaking correctly under pressure also requires emotional boundaries. Not every thought deserves attention. Some thoughts are stress responses, not truth. The inner voice must filter. This thought is stress, not fact. Labeling thoughts weakens their authority. Authority shifts back to awareness. Awareness creates calm command. Failure is also a moment where ego tries to protect itself. It may push blame outward or inward. Neither helps. Correct self-talk stays neutral. This didn't work. Neutrality preserves clarity. Clarity allows correction. Correction leads to growth. Pressure tests identity. If your identity is fragile, pressure breaks it. If your identity is process-based, pressure refines it. Process-based identity sounds like this. I am someone who learns. Learning identities survive failure. Fixed identities collapse under it. Speaking to yourself during pressure means reinforcing process, not image. You are not protecting reputation. You are protecting direction. Direction matters more. Failure also invites urgency. The inner voice screams, fix it now. Urgency creates reckless decisions. Correct self-talk slows urgency. First, stabilize. Stabilization prevents mistakes. Pressure reduces vision. The inner voice must widen it again. There are multiple paths. Multiple paths reduce panic. Panic narrows options. Under pressure. Under pressure. Under pressure. To be on board. To be on board. Your inner voice must become a commander. Calm, precise, steady. Commanders do not panic. They assess. They prioritize. They act. You must speak to yourself like someone you trust in crisis, not like someone you fear. Fear-based inner voices create collapse. Trust-based inner voices create survival. Failure also brings exhaustion. The inner voice must recognize limits. Rest before deciding. Rest restores clarity. Pressure plus exhaustion creates distortion. Correct self-talk prevents that trap. Another key during failure is avoiding permanent language. Permanent language deepens despair. This ruined everything. Correct self-talk uses temporary language. This is a setback. Temporary language creates hope. Hope restores motivation. Motivation restores action. Action restores confidence. Failure also creates silence. People withdraw internally. Correct self-talk keeps communication open. You stay connected to yourself. You do not abandon yourself when things go wrong. This is emotional loyalty. People who stay loyal to themselves recover faster. Pressure also tests patience. The inner voice wants immediate relief. Correct self-talk accepts delay. This will take time. Acceptance reduces frustration. Frustration drains energy. Energy is precious under pressure. Speaking correctly means conserving it. This chapter teaches one truth. Failure does not define you. Pressure does not break you. Language does. And when language is corrected, failure becomes instruction, pressure becomes training, and reality begins responding differently. You don't escape pressure by becoming stronger. You survive it by becoming clearer. Clear inner speech is strength. And when the world pushes hard, that clarity is what keeps you standing. Chapter 8. Creating a new identity through consistent inner language. Identity is not who you think you are. It is who you talk to yourself as. Most people believe identity is fixed. In truth, identity is rehearsed. You become familiar with a version of yourself because you speak to yourself as if that version is permanent. Every repeated sentence becomes an identity agreement. I'm not confident. I'm always anxious. I'm not disciplined. These are not observations. They are contracts. The mind signs whatever is repeated. Identity is formed not by one big declaration, but by thousands of small internal statements, spoken consistently over time. This is why change feels hard, not because growth is impossible, but because identity language is consistent. Consistency is powerful. Whatever is consistent becomes believable. Your inner voice is the narrator that tells you who you are, and the narrator never stops talking. If that narration stays the same, identity stays the same. To change identity, you must change narration. Not once, not emotionally, consistently. A new identity is not created by pretending to be someone else. It is created by speaking to yourself from a new internal position. You do not say, "I am confident now," and hope it sticks. That creates resistance. You say, "I am learning how to handle discomfort." That creates permission. Permission is how identity evolves. Old identity language is absolute. This is who I am. New identity language is process-based. This is who I'm becoming. Becoming feels safe. Being feels final. The mind resists sudden identity shifts. It accepts gradual ones. Consistent inner language is how gradual change becomes permanent. Each day you speak to yourself as someone who is capable of learning. Your identity shifts slightly. Each day you speak to yourself as someone who survives pressure. Your identity strengthens. Identity does not change in moments. It changes in patterns. Patterns are built through repetition. This is why discipline matters. Not discipline of action first, but discipline of language. Your inner language must match the identity you want to live into. If you speak like a victim, you live like one. If you speak like a learner, you evolve like one. If you speak like someone who endures, you develop resilience. Identity follows tone. The tone of your inner voice becomes the tone of your behavior. Harsh tone creates defensive identity. Guiding tone creates growth identity. Most people sabotage identity change by mixing languages. One moment they encourage, the next moment they insult. Inconsistency confuses the nervous system. Confusion prevents trust, and identity requires trust. You must trust, and that the voice guiding you will not turn against you under pressure. That trust is built through consistency. Consistent inner language creates emotional predictability. Predictability creates safety. Safety allows experimentation. Experimentation allows growth. This is how new identities form. A person does not suddenly become confident. They become someone who practices steadiness. They do not suddenly become disciplined. They become someone who speaks to themselves through resistance instead of against it. Language shapes how you experience effort. If effort is spoken as suffering, identity avoids it. If effort is spoken as training, identity embraces it. Training language builds capable identity. Suffering language builds avoidance identity. Consistent inner language also shapes self-respect. When you speak to yourself with respect, you begin to act like someone worthy of respect. Behavior aligns with internal treatment. People who disrespect themselves internally often accept disrespect externally. Identity leaks outward. When inner language becomes steady and respectful, boundaries strengthen naturally. You stop tolerating what contradicts who you are becoming. Identity is also reinforced by how you speak to yourself in quiet moments. Not during motivation, not during crisis, in ordinary moments. Those moments define identity. If your inner voice is careless there, identity remains careless. If your inner voice is intentional there, identity becomes intentional. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Intensity fades. Consistency accumulates. Accumulation builds reality. Your brain learns identity by tracking what repeats, not what inspires. Inspiration is temporary. Repetition is permanent. This is why affirmations fail when they are emotional but inconsistent. Consistency rewires belief. Even neutral guidance repeated daily reshapes identity faster than emotional declarations repeated rarely. Identity language must feel believable. Believability reduces resistance. Instead of saying, "I am fearless," and you say, "I am learning to stay steady when fear appears," that sentence feels true. Truth is accepted by the nervous system. Once accepted, identity adjusts. Identity change also requires patience. You will hear the old voice for a long time. That does not mean change is failing. It means habit is fading. Habits fade slowly. The goal is not to silence the old identity. The goal is to stop obeying it. Consistent new language gradually becomes louder, not because it shouts, but because it is repeated. Repetition builds authority. Authority creates identity. Your inner voice must sound like someone you want to become, not arrogant, not imaginary, grounded, clear, process-focused. Identity is reinforced by how you speak during boredom, during resistance, during fatigue. These are the real tests. If your inner language holds steady there, identity locks in. This is why new identities collapse when motivation fades. Motivation is emotional. Identity is structural. Structure survives emotion. Consistent inner language creates structure. Structure becomes character. Character becomes destiny. You do not wake up one day as a new person. You wake up one day realizing you have been speaking as that person for a long time, and reality has been responding quietly. Opportunities feel different. Challenges feel manageable. Confidence feels natural, not forced, not loud, natural, because your inner language has been shaping behavior without drama. This chapter is about commitment. Commitment to speak consistently, even when it feels boring, even when it feels slow, even when results are invisible. Identity grows invisibly, before it becomes obvious. Consistent inner language is how you build a self that no longer needs constant fixing. You stop trying to become someone. You start behaving as someone you have already been rehearsing internally. And one day, without announcement, that rehearsal becomes reality. This is how identity is created, not through force, not through pretending, through what you say to yourself every single day. Chapter 9. Inner Speech, Habits and Long-Term Reality Change. Reality does not change suddenly. It shifts quietly, slowly, through repetition. What repeats becomes familiar. What becomes familiar becomes normal. What becomes normal becomes reality. Inner speech is the starting point of that chain. Most people try to change habits directly. They force behavior. They fight resistance. They rely on willpower. And eventually, they fall back. Because habits are not built by effort alone. They are built by instruction. Instruction comes from language. Every habit begins as a sentence. I'll do it later. I'm too tired. I'll start tomorrow. These are not excuses. They are commands. The body follows them. Long-term change does not fail because people lack discipline. It fails because the inner speech that runs daily life has never been updated. Old language creates old habits. Habits are simply repeated responses to repeated inner instructions. If the instruction stays the same, the habit stays the same. This is why awareness alone is not enough. Awareness must become consistent guidance. Inner speech shapes habit formation by defining how effort feels. If effort is described as pain, the body resists it. If effort is described as training, the body tolerates it. Habits grow where effort feels acceptable. Most people quit habits not because they are difficult, but because their inner speech makes them emotionally expensive. This is exhausting. This is pointless. These sentences drain motivation before action even begins. Correct inner speech reduces cost. This is manageable. One step is enough today. Lower emotional cost means higher consistency. Consistency is the real engine of long-term change, not intensity. Habits that change reality are boring habits. They are quiet, undramatic, repeated. Inner speech must support boredom. This doesn't need excitement. It only needs repetition. That sentence protects habits from emotional sabotage. Most people sabotage progress because they expect constant emotion. Reality does not respond to emotion. It responds to pattern. Pattern is built by what you do when motivation disappears. Inner speech during low motivation determines habit survival. If the voice says, skip today, the habit weakens. If it says, do less but continue, the habit survives. Survival matters more than perfection. Perfection kills momentum. Correct inner speech removes pressure and preserves continuity. Continuity builds identity. Identity sustains habit. This is the loop. Inner speech creates habit. Habit reinforces identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Behavior reshapes reality. Long-term change is circular, not linear. Break the loop at language, and everything downstream shifts. Habits also shape perception. What you do daily changes what you notice. When habits improve, opportunities appear more often. Not because reality changed instantly, but because your mind became aligned with a new pattern. Inner speech directs attention. What you tell yourself matters, is not philosophy. It is mechanics. Your brain filters reality based on internal instruction. If your inner speech says, this never works, you stop noticing progress. If it says, small improvements count, you start seeing momentum. Momentum fuels persistence. Persistence reshapes outcomes. Long-term reality change also depends on how you speak to yourself after breaking a habit. Most people collapse progress with one sentence. I'm back to zero. That sentence resets identity. Correct inner speech preserves progress. One lapse doesn't erase direction. That sentence keeps the habit alive. Reality responds to direction, not to temporary deviation. Habits fail when inner speech turns mistakes into endings. Precision language keeps them as moments. This was a pause. Pauses do not end journeys. Quitting does. Inner speech also shapes patience. Long-term change requires time. Time requires tolerance. If your inner voice is impatient, habits feel slow and frustrating. If your inner voice accepts process, habits feel steady and reliable. This is building quietly. Quiet building lasts. Loud building collapses. Reality favors quiet builders. People who change their lives rarely announce it. They adjust their inner language, show up consistently, and let time do its work. Inner speech also controls self-reward. If you only reward big outcomes, habits feel thankless. Correct inner speech rewards consistency. I showed up. That sentence releases satisfaction. Satisfaction reinforces habit. Habit survives when effort feels acknowledged. Your inner voice must become a fair witness, not a harsh judge. Long-term change also depends on emotional recovery. If your inner speech punishes fatigue, habits collapse. Collapse if it allows rest. Habits adapt. Rest is part of the system. That sentence preserves sustainability. Sustainable habits reshape reality. Unsustainable habits break people. Inner speech must prioritize longevity. Reality does not reward speed. It rewards consistency. Your inner language must reflect that truth daily. Over time, habits supported by correct inner speech change how you live. Decisions feel easier. Resistance weakens. Confidence stabilizes. Not because you force yourself, but because your internal system is no longer fighting itself. Reality begins responding differently. When people treat you differently, opportunities align differently, outcomes stabilize. Not magically, systemically. Inner speech creates systems. Systems create results. This chapter reveals a simple truth. You don't change your life by trying harder. You change it by speaking differently until new habits feel normal. Normal behavior creates normal reality. And once your habits align with who you speak to yourself as, long-term change becomes inevitable, not because you chase it, but because you've built the internal structure that supports it. Chapter 10. When inner speech aligns, reality can no longer resist you. There comes a moment when effort feels different, not lighter, not easier, aligned. That moment arrives when your inner speech finally stops fighting your direction. Most people live with internal friction. They want one thing, but speak in another direction. They say they want growth, but speak fear. They say they want change, but speak doubt. They say they want peace, but speak pressure. Reality listens to consistency, not desire. When inner speech aligns, resistance disappears, not outside, inside. And once resistance inside dissolves, reality has nothing left to push against. Alignment means your thoughts, your words, your emotions, and your actions are no longer contradicting each other. There is one direction. That direction creates momentum. Momentum changes outcomes. Most people try to bend reality without aligning themselves. They push harder. They force more. They demand results. But reality does not respond to force. It responds to coherence. Coherence is when inner speech matches intention. When you stop telling yourself one story while trying to live another. This is why aligned people seem lucky. They are not lucky. They are congruent. Their inner voice supports their behavior instead of sabotaging it. When inner speech aligns, your nervous system relaxes. Relaxation increases clarity. Clarity improves decision-making. Better decisions create better consequences. Reality shifts quietly. Aligned inner speech also changes how long you persist. Resistance usually wins because inner dialogue drains energy. When the voice becomes aligned, energy stops leaking. You no longer fight yourself. You move forward, with less emotional cost. Less cost means more consistency. Consistency is unstoppable. Reality cannot resist what shows up daily. Without internal conflict, alignment also changes timing. People miss opportunity, not because they don't exist, but because inner speech delays action. I'm not ready. Later. Someday. Aligned inner speech removes delay. Now is enough. That sentence collapses hesitation. Hesitation disappeared when inner language stops arguing with readiness. You don't wait to feel ready. You speak readiness into existence. Not falsely. Practically. I can begin where I am. That sentence unlocks movement. Movement changes reality. When inner speech aligns, fear loses authority. Fear still appears, but it no longer commands behavior. It becomes information, not instruction. Alignment creates emotional hierarchy. Your values lead, your fear follows. That order changes everything. People who master this feel different in the world. They are not reckless. They are grounded. Their confidence is quiet because it is internal. They don't need validation because their inner voice already provides direction. This self-sufficiency makes them powerful. Reality responds differently to people who don't beg it to change. Aligned people don't chase outcomes. They build systems. Systems built on aligned inner speech run even on difficult days. Bad days no longer derail progress because the inner voice does not turn hostile. When things slow down, hostility kills momentum. Alignment preserves it. Another shift occurs. When inner speech aligns, self-trust becomes stable. You begin trusting that your mind will not betray you when pressure arrives. This trust reduces anxiety. Anxiety is the fear that you won't handle what's coming. Aligned inner speech removes that fear. I'll adapt. Adaptation is power. Reality respects adaptability. Rigid minds break. Flexible minds reshape circumstances. Alignment makes flexibility possible because inner speech is no longer extreme. It is precise. It is steady. Precision keeps emotion usable. Aligned inner speech also changes identity permanently. You stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to improve. You become someone who operates differently. Trying ends. Being begins. Not because you declared it, but because you rehearsed it long enough that it became natural. Reality recognizes natural behavior. Forced behavior collapses. Aligned behavior persists. This is why people around you start responding differently. They sense congruence. Congruence creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity reshapes reality, not through luck, through alignment. When inner speech aligns, you stop self-correcting emotionally every few minutes. Energy stays available. Available energy increases capacity. Capacity changes results. Reality always follows capacity. Aligned inner speech also sharpens intuition. Noise disappears. You hear what matters. Decisions feel simpler because internal conflict is gone. Simplicity accelerates action. Action creates evidence. Evidence strengthens belief. Belief stabilizes identity. Identity sustains alignment. This loop becomes self-reinforcing. At this stage, you are no longer fighting reality. You are cooperating with it. Reality resists chaos. It rewards order. Aligned inner speech creates order, not control. Order. Control is rigid. Order is adaptable. Aligned people adjust without panic. They fail without collapsing. They succeed without ego inflation. They remain steady. Steadiness compounds. Compounding is invisible at first, then suddenly obvious. People call it transformation. In truth, it was alignment all along. Your inner speech stopped contradicting your direction. Reality finally had clarity on how to respond. This is the final truth of the journey. Reality was never against you. It was responding to mixed signals. Once the signal became clear, the response became consistent. You do not force reality to change. You speak yourself into alignment until reality has no reason to resist. This is not mysticism. It is mechanics. Your inner language becomes instruction. Instruction becomes behavior. Behavior becomes pattern. Pattern becomes reality. This is the chain you have been building chapter by chapter. Now it is complete. You no longer need to fix yourself. You need to maintain alignment. Alignment is quieter than effort. It feels calmer. It feels stable. It feels real. And once you experience it, you will never confuse motivation not with mastery again. Because mastery feels grounded. It feels consistent. It feels inevitable. This is the moment where struggle turns into structure, where effort turns into rhythm, where change turns into identity. Once you speak to yourself correctly, reality does not fight you, it follows, because you are no longer divided, you are aligned, and aligned movement cannot be resisted. this is not the end. This is the point where life finally begins responding to the version of you that was always meant to lead it.